am so glad to see all my relatives here.
Yes.
Relatives, you don't know what you do for a person.
All the Severs family and Farrar family, just put your hand up in the air. We're not going to ask you to stand.
All the Farrar family.
Yeah, look at that.
Isn't that beautiful? I love it, and thank you so much. And thank everybody else, Nora, and I can't call her, my grandson right there. There's so many of you, Miss Bird, and Gail, and my niece Vivian, and I can't call his name, Adrian, and Erica, and Jennifer, and Michelle. And,
So many.
Thank all of you.
And Brother Severs in the back there, Brother Richard Severs in the back.
Oh, I didn't see him.
There it is, right over here, Miss Farrar.
Oh, he stays with me all the time.
And we're going to hear more from Miss Farrar. We're going to hear more. We're going to ask her some questions, but we're going to hear Pastor Darden's story. So that way, if you have a question, you can say who your question is for. So now we will hear from our mayor,
Thank you. Thank you.
Pastor Darden. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Farrar.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to tell my life story. Also, I see Sue Dorothy's here, and because of her intercession, I've had an opportunity many times to tell this to the high school students at Sandusky High and Perkins. And almost each time, one of the gentlemen in the classes would say, "I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it." But anyway, let me go back to the Depression days. I almost said recession, but recession is not a depression. We're going to the real depression. Back in 1929, as a fellow introduced me last Saturday and said, way back in 1929.
I wouldn't say that today.
But anyway, in 1929, well, let me just say, first of all, my mother was from Seneca, South Carolina. My father was from Toccoa, Georgia, the Indian reservation there on Tupelo River. Distance of about Sandusky and Fremont apart, but they were in different states. They did not know each other there. They met one another here. And my father had come seeking employment, and my mother had come to live with her stepmother, who was separated from her father. They met, they were married here in 1925. And as a result of that marriage, my brother was born, my sister, and then I was born in 1929. In 1932, and I like to put this in, I didn't like the situation around here, so I left. At the age of 2, I left. What had happened was, my father was working at Farrar Steel Company. They were almost closed, and just could not find employment. We were farmers. His parents were farmers in Georgia. They owned their own farm. And he took the position, if we go south, at least we can eat. You know, we have a substandard house, true enough, but we'll have plenty to eat. My mother took the position that she did not want any more of the South to live in. She had suffered through the Jim Crow society, and she did not want to go back to it. Well, they came to a decision that he was going to go south, and he was going to take the 3 children, which I was the younger of the 3. And it was, I think, a wise decision, because my mother could not have fed us back in 1929, 30, and 32, those years. So we went south. My sister, my brother, along with my father, we lived with my grandmother, his mother. My grandfather passed away, and there we were on this huge farm, plenty of space to play as we understood life, and plenty of food to eat. But then it was time to start the school. We had lived out on the farm area. The nearest family probably was about 2 miles away. The nearest white family was about maybe 3 or 4 miles away. So we didn't have any problems, racial problems. But then time came to start school. And when we started the school, we noticed that we had to go to a school that was across the track. And the other kids that we saw along the way were going to this pretty red brick school here downtown. So what it was a society of Jim Crowism. We went to the school across the track, which was all black, substandard building, outside plumbing, and all the amenities that you can think of. But then we noticed too that our books were used books. We did not get new books. And that I couldn't understand. So one day, I was one of the few boys in school that had a bicycle. So one day the principal came to me and asked me to go over to they call it the white school, and take this letter that he gave me. I was a real trusty Boy Scout, you know. And so I went over, took the letter, and I found out Mr. Cheatham was his name. He said, well, you go back and tell Professor Freeman that I'll send some books over maybe at the first of the month. That's when I learned that our books in school were books that was discarded from the white school. When they had finished with them, they would send them over to the black school. So we had no the science room where they had the microscopes and things like that. We didn't have any of that. We didn't have any of that. Our basketball, we played outside. We did not have a gymnasium. We did not have a bus to ride to school. Then when it came time to get a job, we learned that there was just certain kind of jobs that the black kids could get. You could get a job delivering groceries. You could get a job washing dishes in the bus station or wherever. But then, as far as transportation was concerned, if you were going to go to some of the near cities, such as Gainesville or Atlanta, you would catch the train. You had a special coach you would ride in. If you rode on the bus, you had to sit in the back. And then when you got to the station, if you wanted to eat, there was a special dining room that you went to, if there was a dining room. If there was not a dining room, you could go to the rear of the one dining room they had and get your meal and take it outside and eat. We didn't have a Big Boy or McDonald's or anything like that, no fast food. But we could go to the rear and order whatever we wanted, but we'd have to take it out. We couldn't eat it inside. I felt, well, let me just share this with you too. In the department stores, you were allowed to try on clothing. The men were allowed to try on clothing, but the women were not allowed to try on clothing in most of the department stores. The men could try on a jacket, pair of trousers, but the women could not try on anything. I'm speaking to black women. Also in the department store, you had his and her restroom. Not only did you have his and her, you had, they called them colored back in those days. You had the colored men and the colored women restroom. You had the white men and the white women restroom. You can see how expensive Jim Crowism is, because you had to have 2 of everything extra. You go to the drinking fountain, you had a fountain for the colored and a fountain for the white. And ironically enough, it would be a pillow in the center of the building. And you'd be on one side drinking water for colored only, then on the other side of the pillow, someone would be drinking water for white only, you know. But we also noticed too that one of the things I don't want to miss is that your work, most of the black women were domestics. And if you were not a domestic, you could take in washing and wash clothes at home and iron. And that's what my grandmother did. She took in washing, she would wash clothes, she ironed them, and we would pick them up. We would pick them up on Saturday when we went to town with the horse and buggy, and we would deliver them the next Saturday. But now, these clothes was nice, clean, starched, ironed, white, but because you were black, you had to take them to the back door. I didn't understand that at first. My grandmother says, you have to take them to the back. I said, well, they're their clothes, so I should have to take them to the back. But I learned quickly, because you had to be obedient to your parents as well as to society. So we had to deliver the clothes to the back. You would use the clothes, you furnish your own soap, you furnish your own water, your own labor, you furnish everything. And then when you deliver the package, you'd get about $1.50. This was pretty much, I think the wages at that time was about 10 cents an hour. And then you got a raise, went up to about 25 cents later on. But anyway, as I spent 12 and a half years in that society, and probably missing something, but I came to Sandusky. I always wanted to come back to my home city. I had a chance to go to either Philadelphia, where my father was, or come to Sandusky, where my mother was. Well, you know how it is. You see these guys on the football team, they always say, hi, Mom, We always want to go where the mother is. Yeah. So I came to Sandusky in October of 1945. I was 14 years of age. I was going to be 15 that November. And ironically enough, I moved to the 100 block on Perry Street. And it was about 4 doors away from Sister Farrar. She was living on Perry Street at that time. But anyway, on Perry Street, there we were. All the blacks on Perry Street lived in that one block. There was not a black person on Perry Street that was not in that one block. And the only white establishment in that one block had a big sign inside, we do not cater to colored trade. And I said, what? You mean to tell me Jim Crow has followed me all the way up here? Yeah. The corner, Ordners, that's the name. Ordners, yeah. He was on the corner. We go get our pop, our chip, our whatever you get them, take them out. Same thing in Georgia. Get it, take it out. The big sign up, we do not cater to colored trade. But let me share this with you. In this area, in the urban station, the bus station, they're right in that area. It was right here. Right here, yes. Now this is for public use. We ride the bus, we come in, and we had the trolleys, and then we had the other buses and so forth after the trolleys. And then you had the Greyhound bus, all came here. And you had a ticket counter up front and a cafeteria in the back. You could buy your ticket, wait for the bus, but you couldn't eat at the cafeteria. There was a big sign in the bus station, public service. We do not cater to colored trade in Sandusky, Ohio. Well, there's about 3 or 4 areas around here where I can mention, but let me move into the school system. The school system was great. And Sandusky High has always been, just to my knowledge, just a wonderful school. And you can talk to some of the students, black students I'm putting emphasis on, that has graduated from Sandusky High. Ashburn, Jennifer Ashburn, my son Tom, Bo Rather, Alex Shoemaker, the list goes on. And they will tell you that their education was second to none when they left Sandusky High School. And the lady you mentioned, Mrs. Lehman, and then the English teacher, Shear.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, they were outstanding teachers. Mr. Paul Lanning, others. But, yeah, but the system itself, we were not allowed to swim in the public swimming pool, though our taxes supported it, kept building. We were not allowed to swim in the public swimming pool. We had hygiene, one of the requirements for us as you go through school, physical education. And there's no way you're going to pass that course if you don't go to swimming, if you don't learn how to swim. But the thing of it is, they passed us without swimming because we was not allowed to swim. You know, it's one of those things that I tell them.